This is 9 News with Wendy Kingston.
Good afternoon and welcome to Nine's very special coverage in the aftermath of what is a massive earthquake and monster tsunami in northern Japan. Of course, the full horror of this natural disaster is still unfolding this afternoon, but this is what we know at this stage. 402 people have been killed. However, of course, the death toll is expected to rise possibly to above 1,000 people. The northeastern city of Sendai appears to have suffered the most, with up to 300 bodies found on the shore there alone. The tsunami, which followed the 8.9 magnitude earthquake, was 10 metres high in some areas. We also know thousands of people have been evacuated after the quake damaged cooling systems at 2 nuclear reactors. We'll have more on that in a moment. And embassy officials are desperately trying to account for 93 Australians registered in some of the worst hit areas. Our reporter Tracy Vo has been following events in Japan and she filed this report.
Monster waves making their menacing way towards land. The towering wall of water pulverising the northeastern town of Sendai. Coming in at 800 kilometres an hour, it's an unstoppable force, wiping away entire villages. Boats struggle to ride it out. One caught on the cusp of this ocean whirlpool. Moving further inland, cars and trucks attempt to speed off. One man even tries to outrun the water. We don't know if he survived. A swirl of floating cars and broken buildings, some on fire, swallowing masses of farmland. This is the runway at Sendai Airport. As the water surrounds the building, people take refuge on the roof. Many were stranded and calling for help in any way they could. Further north in Kamaishi, the surge of water pushed through the port, sweeping away cars and boats in its path. Just minutes earlier, the tsunami sirens wailed. But for many, it just wasn't enough time. This is in Yokohama. Terror and confusion as people rush onto the street. In nearby Tokyo, these are the moments inside supermarkets, office buildings and apartments as the ground shook. You can hear the panic in the voices from those behind the camera.
Holy This is like the real thing.
85 kilometres from Tokyo, this is Ibaraki Airport, only 1 year old. It was designed to withstand tremors, but not this time. Northeast of Tokyo, a nuclear emergency at the Fukushima power plant. Submerged in water, authorities are trying to prevent a radiation leak. Thousands of residents have been evacuated. In Ichihara, north of the capital, an oil refinery burns out of control. A mix of fuel and flames, it's been a losing battle. In Kesanuma, a third of the city has burned. Firefighters are at the helm of this massive inferno that continues to rage. Daybreak, and the extent of the damage is revealed. A lone car on a rooftop, proof of how high the ferocious waves were. With the water now settled, help has arrived. An army of soldiers is briefed for what's going to be a tough search and rescue mission. Tracy Vo, 9 News.
Really is unbelievable stuff. Okay, if you are concerned about friends or relatives in the quake and tsunami zone, you can call the DFAT hotline. That number is there on your screen, 1300 555 135. Stay with us. We'll continue our rolling coverage of the quake disaster after this break. Canberra studio. Mr. Rudd, thank you for your time. Australians in Japan, what are the latest figures that you have?
I've just been speaking with our ambassador in Tokyo just before coming on air. The latest figures we have is in the tsunami-affected or earthquake-affected areas, we're now confident of the registration of about 160 Australians. Of course, we need now to make contact with each of those to be confident that they are safe. Of course, this forms part of the overall list of 2,000 plus Australians we have registered in Japan as a whole. We expect that that's part of 11,000 who are resident in Japan. And so far, we've received something like 3,000 or 4,000 calls from the Australian public seeking to confirm the whereabouts of their family, friends and loved ones.
What is this afternoon the best way for people to get hold of loved ones or try and find out information?
Can I just reinforce this message? There's a three-step process. Number one, seek to make contact with mobile phone. If you can't get through, don't be alarmed by that, because the system is going in and out in Japan. Number two, if you can't get through on the mobile line, try the landline that you have best available for you, for your family, friends or loved ones. Number three, if those two things fail, get straight on to the Department of Foreign Affairs Consular Emergency Hotline, which I'm sure is across the bottom of your screen at present. That is manned or staffed 24 hours a day. I've been down there twice today. We have a huge team of people working on it. As I said, they've processed some 4,000 calls in the last 16, 18 hours alone. And what they then do is get the list, they place it on the registration list for Japan. We then, through the embassy in Tokyo, cross-reference that and seek to physically contact these people. And that's what we're in the process of doing now.
I understand, we know obviously that Sendai was very badly hit. There are a lot of Australians there. Is there any particular reason that so many Australians were in that area?
Multiple reasons. Obviously business activity, but also a number of Australian teachers have lived and worked in that area. The most recent information I have is that the city of Sendai itself does not have comprehensive damage to it. What we are concerned about, however, is the zone between that city and the coast, and then along the coast as well. One piece of good news in terms of Australians in Sendai is that we in the last few hours have made contact with various employees of Lend-Lease, the Australian company, who have operations in Sendai and have an office there, and we've been informed by them that they are all safe. So that is one piece of good news.
Yeah, we definitely need to hold on to the good news at this stage. Mr. Rudd, what sort of details do you have about Australian search and rescue teams planning to head to Japan?
This is important, and I might add just one further piece of consular information for friends and family who are concerned about their relatives in Japan. Right now, a number of Australians, of course, will be seeking to come out through the airport in Narita this evening and fly back to Australia. We've been seeking to send our own consular team to the airport. They've spent the last 4.5 hours on the road between Tokyo and Narita. They expect to get there in about an hour and a half's time. This is normally a journey of about 45 minutes. The road system's clogged, but our purpose is to have them there by the time this evening's flights board back to Australia. The reason being that if people can't get on flights, we'll have a team of Australian consular officials there to provide the best support possible in terms of making further flight bookings for people who are seeking to get out of Japan at this time.
Okay, that's very good news.
Your other question was about what we're doing for support for the search and rescue effort in Japan. We met today with the National Security Committee, which was chaired by the Treasurer. We also have met as a interdepartmental task force in Department of Foreign Affairs on this question. The task force from the search and rescue team from New South Wales will leave Richmond Air Force Base, we assume, at about 6 p.m. this evening, maybe a little bit later. They will then join the dogs that we have ready to be uplifted from Amberley Air Force Base west of Brisbane. They'll then go by C-17 aircraft to Japan, and we have made arrangements with the Japanese military to land at a military airfield immediately west of Tokyo, and then they'll be then deployed as appropriate to obviously the disaster sites.
This is a very popular time, obviously, for Australians heading over to Japan. Normally, we've got ski seasons in full swing at the moment. What advice have you got for Australians who have travel plans at the moment to Japan?
As I always say to people, read very carefully the travel advisory. We have put out a recommendation that people reconsider their need to travel to the two ski centres on the sort of central north western part of the island of Honshu. I would simply encourage people to read carefully those travel advisories. We don't put the information there for fun. It's there because it's the considered deliberation of our consular officials, and I would really urge people to look at that very carefully. More broadly, the consular effort is well underway. I see there are also reports about concerns about the nuclear reactors in Japan. This afternoon, our officials were briefed by representatives of the Australian Radiation Protection and Safety Authority, ARPANSA, who, through the International Atomic Energy Agency, are monitoring this situation very closely and at a technical level. We will continue to do so. And if there's further information to put in the public domain on that, we will do so. But we have already reinforced the travel advisory for Australians in that area near Fukushima to evacuate to a 10-kilometre radius from the site where that nuclear reactor is located.
Kevin Rudd, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks for having me on the program.
Kevin Rudd speaking to us from our Canberra studio. Stay with us here on 9. Our special coverage of the quake disaster continues after this break. All right, that is where we will leave our viewers in New South Wales as well as Victoria. Stand by now for a special edition of the 6 o'clock news.